Hello, how are you? Did you know that there is a type of fat that helps our body eliminate more fat naturally? In this video, I'm going to explain what this fat is and how you can get it into your daily routine. Stick around until the end, you won't want to miss this. Before we start, I want to ask you if you would like to reduce the fat in your body. If you could lose weight, how much would you like to lose? Are you more bothered by localized fat or by your overall weight? Write it for me down here in the comments. I'd love to read yours. If you can, go ahead and like the video because that's really important for me here on the channel. It shows YouTube that you support the channel and trust my content. And if you know someone who would be interested in this topic, share this video. Let's expand our chain of kindness. When we talk about fat, most people think that fat basically does the same thing, right? But metabolically, that's completely wrong. We know that there is white fat naturally present in our bodies, which works as an energy reserve. It stores energy in the form of triglycerides. But there's also another type of fat that people usually don't know about called brown fat. And it works like a heat plant in our body. And this is where a key concept comes in for us to talk about in this video, which is our mitochondria. Brown fat is richer in mitochondria, which are the structures responsible for producing energy in our bodies. But it has a unique special difference. It expresses a specific protein that literally uncouples energy production. So, in practice, this means that instead of producing ATP, which is usable energy, it dissipates this energy in the form of heat, and this is called adaptive thermogenesis. In other words, the body spends energy without doing work. It just generates more heat, and with that, it burns more energy. In other words, when we manage to increase the amount of this brown fat in our body, we transform our metabolically inactive tissue, which is the yellowish fatty tissue, white fat, into a more metabolically active tissue, and this completely changes the game for our metabolism. Nowadays, researchers have been talking a lot about a very modern concept in metabolic science, which is the browning of fat. In simple terms, it's like turning fat that is naturally white or yellowish into a more brownish fat. This transformation of white fat into beige fat, so to speak, which is a more brownish fat. And these cells also start to behave as if they were brown fat. But that's not all that matters because this process involves changes in gene expression, with specific genes being activated and increasing the number of mitochondria in our cells. This is very interesting. And in fact, when we manage to achieve this, we not only burn more fat, but as I mentioned before, we turn this environment into a more metabolically active one, which is obviously very beneficial for our health and for weight loss itself. Besides that, it's worth mentioning that having more brown fat in our body doesn't just help with metabolism and weight loss. When activated, it increases glucose uptake via GLUT4, which is very good for controlling blood sugar. So this also helps improve insulin sensitivity and reduce circulating glucose. And this brings a very important benefit for those with insulin resistance, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome. So studies show that people with more active brown fat have better glycemic control, which is also important for our health. Now, why does this tend to get worse as we age? Many people notice that their metabolism worsens with age, and this may be related to a reduction in mitochondrial activity within the fat cells themselves, less activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and a drop in catecholamine production. So, because of this, over time, as we age, we may have less activation of our brown fat. In addition, we know that as we get older, we can experience more persistent, low-grade chronic inflammation and greater insulin resistance. And it's as if all of this naturally shuts down the system. That's why it's so important for us to talk about this, how we can naturally stimulate the brown fat in our bodies, making it more metabolically active. When we look at scientific data on how to stimulate more brown fat to increase this brown fat, most studies start by discussing cold exposure, which is very trendy these days, right? Cold showers, people taking baths, or even immersing themselves in an ice tub. These are more extreme things. That's because cold is the main trigger for brown fat in our bodies. When our body feels cold, what does it understand? That it needs to produce heat to survive, of course, to warm up our body, which has a standard average temperature to function properly. And then a chain reaction happens, which is actually quite simple to explain. When we expose ourselves to the cold, the body goes into alert mode, starts releasing substances that signal it to burn energy, and activates that brown fat, like I mentioned, to generate more heat. So you start burning more energy simply to warm up and maintain your body's basal temperature. It's as if the body actually turns on an internal heater. And this heater doesn't use electricity, obviously. It uses the calories you already have. So this happens because the cold activates the nervous system, which releases noradrenaline, signaling the fat to start burning that energy, and that's how we get this important beneficial result. Now, besides that, a lot of people don't want to expose themselves to the cold, right? A lot of people say, Patricia, I know that cold has this effect. I've seen studies about it, but it's uncomfortable because many people don't want to take a cold shower in the morning. They don't want to immerse themselves in an ice bath. I respect that because it really is uncomfortable. So people ask, what can I do besides cold exposure, besides exposing myself to the cold, which is already so well documented? So there are things you can add to your diet, to your lifestyle, that can help activate more brown fat. Let's talk about them then. The first one is capsaicin, which is found in chili peppers. We already know about the role of chili peppers in improving metabolism, but capsaicin actually increases the expression and activation of a specific receptor that boosts the release of noradrenaline, which is exactly the neurotransmitter that activates brown fat. So in practice, it's as if you're giving a little push so that the system, which is activated by cold, also gets activated by capsaicin. There's another very interesting group, which are the catechins found in green tea, especially epigallocatechin gallate, and we already know about the role of green tea in our metabolism. So it's not that they directly increase heat production, but they do something strategic, which is to prolong the action of noradrenaline in our body. In other words, they stimulate the activation of brown fat for an even longer period, in a more prolonged way. So if you want to add more capsaicin, chili peppers, and green tea to your daily diet, you can get more stimulation. There are still other foods that can also help in a complementary way. There's another food that has been widely studied for this, which is caffeine. We already know that caffeine affects metabolism, but it also stimulates the release of catecholamines, which activate the sympathetic nervous system and enhance this thermogenic environment. So you can try adding more coffee and foods rich in caffeine, like green tea itself, to your daily diet. There's also the matter of resveratrol, which is found in grapes, red wine, and some plant-based foods, and it can also stimulate this process. Resveratrol helps increase the activation of proteins that are related to the formation of more mitochondria and the cell's ability to generate more energy from fat, so it helps prepare the cell to burn more energy. Lastly, there's another very interesting compound, which is quercetin, for example, found in red onions and other types of onions, though in different concentrations. It's also found in apples and other vegetables, which helps due to its antioxidant effect and can increase the expression of proteins linked to thermogenesis. So these foods, as a complement, can also greatly help with the activation of brown fat in our bodies. In addition, there's another interesting point, which is how we can activate this brown fat through our lifestyle. Last but not least, there's a lifestyle adaptation you can make if you want to increase the expression of mitochondria in your fat cells, which is physical exercise. During physical exercise, your muscles release myokines, and the main one is irisin, which signals to the adipose tissue, let's increase this energy expenditure. In addition, we know that exercise increases mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning the formation of more mitochondria in the cells, improves fat oxidation, and promotes this browning, this darkening of the fat cell. So that's why we can explain metabolically why exercise promotes weight loss, even if sometimes you don't do exercise at such a high intensity or with such a strenuous calorie expenditure at that moment. In a broader sense, it can boost your metabolism and fat loss. In addition, we also need to talk about the role of sleep, because we know that chronic sleep deprivation in people is linked to poorer circadian rhythm expression, hormonal secretion, and it can even reduce leptin, which is the satiety hormone, increase ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and worsen insulin sensitivity. So hormones can get out of balance, and in addition, it can reduce the proper activity of the sympathetic nervous system, which can negatively affect fat metabolism, and ultimately, the expression of browning in our bodies. So if we could try to simplify all of this to give you some tips on what you can do in your daily life. Try not to always live with the maximum heating on. If you live in a colder place, try to keep your body temperature as low as possible while still being comfortable. If you want to add cold showers or ice baths and you don't have any medical contraindications, this could be an interesting option for you. Including movement throughout the day, physical activity, and more movement, more physical activity, not just exercise, will definitely be very important. Also improving your sleep, taking better care of your sleep quality, and trying to include foods that are naturally more thermogenic and may help stimulate this browning process in the body can be beneficial, potentially helping your own fat tissue burn more energy. Tell me, did you know about this? Are you going to start putting any of these things into practice today? Always remember that, in addition, it's important for you to have a proper diet and to consult your doctor or nutritionist if you're in the process of losing weight and want more help or more personalized guidance. Remember that this video is for informational purposes only. Take the opportunity to like the video, that really helps me out, and share it with someone who will enjoy it or who needs it. Let's work together to expand this chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.